Well, thank you very much for those the series of warm introductions. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Chief Weaselhead. Thank you for that welcome to Treaty 7 lands. And thank you, Nancy, for that fabulous introduction. I know you're a little bit of a busy human being, but if you wanted to come on the road with me and just do that intro before going, that would be great. I could use that. And thank you to all of you for coming out here today in such incredibly remarkable numbers. I am acutely aware, in fact, as I speak to you today, that I am truly the only thing that stands between all of you and the end of a very important baseball game. So, and just to be clear, last I heard we were ahead. So let me just share with you a very historic moment, and then I will make you a pledge. So here's the historic moment. An Alberta Premier is hereby going to say, in Calgary, "Let's go Toronto." And my pledge is that I'll try not to speak for too long for those of you who think you have the capacity to go and catch the last couple of innings. I'm very grateful to the Calgary Chamber of Commerce for bringing us together today to discuss some of the very important issues that are facing Alberta. And I'm also very grateful for the thoughtful, progressive, and helpful advice and counsel that the Calgary Chamber has been offering our government since our election. We value the relationship that we have with you, and we are delighted that you accepted our invitation to be one of the very first groups to meet with us at our government's very first cabinet meeting here in Calgary. Let's face it, this is a very good time to be offering advice. The government of Alberta was, I would argue, a bit overdue for a reset and a renovation. I am the fourth premier that our province has had in 2 years. And there have been many tumultuous surprises in and around the legislature in Alberta. A lot of drama, a lot of uncertainty. And then we had an election, and we changed the government for the first time since 1971. So it's not been dull in Alberta politics. But now, in my view, is the time for a little less drama and a little more governing in the public interest. We have re-entered a period of political stability and a strong majority government here in this province. And it gives us an opportunity to deal with some of the important matters that require a steady hand and careful thought. And to that end, my government has been working very hard on our agenda. Now, the next major milestone in this work will be our provincial budget, which we will put before the legislature on October 27th. So I'm here today to outline what we've been working on as we get ready for that day. And then I'm going to conclude by offering you just a few thoughts on the coming federal election. So let me begin by saying that, as everyone in this room knows very well, the challenges that the people and the government of Alberta face are not small. A year ago today, energy prices were strong, often trading above $90. Yesterday, the price was testing $50 after a long drop. In 2014, the Alberta economy grew by 4.4%. In 2015, our GDP is projected to shrink by 0.6%. The economy of Alberta added 48,400 jobs in 2014, and by one estimate, we have so far lost some 35,000 jobs in the energy sector alone this year. Energy sector capital expenditures in our province have declined significantly. These realities are confronting the government of Alberta with a very tough fiscal challenge. We ran a $1.1 billion surplus last year. And then our predecessors in office projected this spring that our province would run more than a $5 billion deficit this year. And since that estimate, pressure has continued on oil prices and therefore on provincial finances, so it's possible that that deficit may end up being higher. So these are very tough challenges, to be sure. They cannot be underestimated. But it's also important for all of us to know that put up against these facts, we also have some profoundly significant advantages that we can build on together. Alberta has, for instance, world-class universities and colleges, which can be fountainheads of innovation and new ideas. If we could partner with them closely with job creators and innovators in the broader economy. We have one of Canada's youngest and best educated workforces. Our province still has, by far, the lowest overall provincial taxes in Canada, with no sales tax, and it's going to stay that way. We have, by far, the lowest provincial debt in Canada. No one comes close to our province. Zero net debt, all in. And we have an innovative, flexible, made-in-Alberta capital market. And as many of you here know and can tell me better than I can tell you, as much as our energy industry is under pressure, our world-leading energy companies, many led by the people here in this room, know how to cope with the volatility that is inherent in the energy business these days. So my duty as Premier is to make sure that the Government of Alberta does its part to help address the significant economic shock that we are facing. And my duty is to make sure that the Government of Alberta is a good partner, leading our province forward, building on those advantages that I've outlined. We will live up to our promise to grow prosperity, and we will create good jobs, and we will create good conditions that will be widely and fairly shared, renewed prosperity that will benefit all Albertans. Now, we know there is only one way to succeed, and that's by supporting an open, sustainable, and increasingly diversified economy. We know we can't accomplish this by ourselves. Job creators create jobs in the private sector, not government. And so we will be honest, thoughtful partners to them. Alberta will continue to be a healthy place for private investment under our government. Our energy industry is a foundation of our economy and will be for many years to come. Looking for new opportunities in our energy economy and pioneering advanced technologies, all of this will continue to require investment on a large scale. So under our leadership, Alberta's abundant oil and gas reserves will remain very open to investment. We will maintain one of the most competitive tax systems in Canada. Our government will boost exports by seeking out new relationships, strengthening old ones, and by enhancing Alberta's environmental record. And we will be consultative and prudent in how we take the province in a new and better direction. Now, contrary to what sometimes people think, we actually don't control the price, the international price of oil. So we therefore, in fact, have to manage the hand that we have been dealt, while working to diversify our economy and working to reduce our dependence on a single product and a single price. We can also work on strong and progressive policies that move us forward and position us to build on these resources as prices recover. So, for example, this July, the Canadian Energy Strategy was endorsed and adopted by every provincial and territorial government in Canada at the Council of the Federation meeting held in St. John's, Newfoundland this summer. The Canadian Energy Strategy is a very important intergovernmental framework that will help Canadian governments align on an environmentally responsible, sustainable, and prudently managed development of Canada's energy resource and energy potential. Now, there are some very important competing views on these issues, but ultimately, conducting interprovincial business respectfully and collaboratively turned out to be the best strategy. An important commitment all of us made in the Canadian Energy Strategy was to work to build our energy economy in a way that is environmentally responsible. Now, we are listening carefully to Albertans about this issue because Albertans feel strongly, as do many leaders in the energy industry, that it is long, long past due for us in the government of Alberta to get it right on the environment. Air pollution and poor air quality is a direct threat to the health of our children and our grandparents. Albertans know well that environmental issues, and specifically the issue of climate change, is a key global problem that every community and every jurisdiction must help address, especially an energy producing jurisdiction like ours. And if we don't get it right on this issue, a solution is going to be imposed upon us, sooner or later, by others, by the federal government and by our markets, who will increasingly insist that energy products that they buy be mined and exported and processed responsibly. So if we want an environmental policy that works for Alberta, that keeps our capital in Alberta, then the time to act is now. And finally, our province needs to act because, quite honestly, doing so is increasingly going to be the price of admission to those energy markets we seek to access. Now, it is my hope that by acting decisively on the issue of climate change, we will reframe the current national debate over pipelines and energy infrastructure. By making better decisions in Alberta about the environment, we will hopefully be then able to discuss key pipeline projects on their own economic and environmental merits. Now, speaking of the energy business a bit more, I'd be willing to bet that some of you might have heard that we're conducting a royalty review. Now, this is an important review that is about modernizing and updating our royalty system so that it fits our future energy industry instead of its past. This review is about considering whether there are ways to better manage our royalties so that they support processing, diversification, and value-added development. And this review is about ensuring that as prices recover, we collect and begin to save an appropriate share of our own resource wealth in the Alberta Heritage Savings Trust Fund for the future of our children and of our grandchildren. The time is past due, long past due, for the Government of Alberta to return to a responsible long-term approach to collecting and investing our royalty wealth so that we stop being the farmer who pays for the groceries by selling the topsoil. You've heard this one before. So here is the timeline. To be very clear, we intend to announce our policy changes in this area by the end of this year, by the end of 2015. And any changes will be implemented by the end of 2016, in January 2017. So it's really important that people understand we're not delaying announcement till January of 2017. We are simply giving people lots and lots of notice. Now let's speak about Alberta's broader fiscal challenges. We've seen the drop in the price of oil many, many times before in the province of Alberta, and we will see price cycles many times in the future. But that doesn't make it any easier to deal with the kind of revenue shocks that we are witnessing as I speak. Now, we'll be setting out the details of how we intend to manage this situation in the provincial budget that we'll be presenting to the legislature on October 27th. But in general, let me talk a little bit about what we're trying to do. We're looking to achieve three things. First, we're going to stabilize public services like health and education, and we are going to correct some mistakes that, in our view, previous governments made in managing public finances. Secondly, we will present a plan to return to fiscal balance. And finally, the Government of Alberta has an important role to play as good partners to Alberta's job creators, entrepreneurs, good ideas people, and visionaries. Now, I spoke earlier about the economic facts and the figures facing our province. These numbers affect the lives and economic security of your neighbours and mine. They're affecting families in every community in this province. So job creation has to be at the heart of our province's agenda. Now, Alberta has always been a great place to start and build a business. Our aim is to become Canada's best place to start and grow a business, competing at the high end with Alberta-owned businesses that provide our citizens with good, high-skill, good-paying, mortgage-paying jobs, which is not about a race to the bottom in taxes. Albertans are willing and ready to pay for well-managed, prudently budgeted healthcare, education, and public services. These are the foundations of both a good society and a good climate for growth and investment in each and every one of our communities. Being a great place to launch and build a business is about having a modern, efficient, and globally competitive infrastructure. That being so, we are considering a strategy to make a significant investment in Alberta's infrastructure. Capital, as you know, these days is relatively inexpensive, and there is some capacity available in the construction industry. And we have a not-to-be-missed opportunity to build the infrastructure that we need and have needed for some time, and that we will need in Alberta's future economy. Today, I'm here in Calgary, so it's right to say that when a window is available to address some of our infrastructure gaps in this city, it's about the priorities that are near and dear to the hearts of the citizens of Calgary, like finally getting to work on a new cancer centre, like getting to work on building a flood management solution, like stepping up to some of this city's public transit needs. There is more the government of Alberta can do to be a good partner with job creators, and we can work within our means to expand access to capital, and we can support innovation through that. We can be determined about trade development, single-minded in attracting inward investment throughout our economy. And we can reform the way we structure government so that we are easier for job creators to work with, one-stop shopping for government business services. So we are considering all of this very carefully, and we will have a lot more to say about it in and around the budget. So let me conclude with a few thoughts on the federal election coming next week. Now, I suspect you all have a fairly good suspicion about which party I am going to vote for on October 19th. I was literally born into the NDP, and I believe its principles and values are what the country needs now, as are the grit, the determination, and the intellect of Tom Mulcair. But I want to say to you this: whoever wins the election, as Premier of Alberta, I intend to pick up our conversation with either Prime Minister Mulcair, Prime Minister Harper, or Prime Minister Trudeau in pursuit of Alberta's interests. And here are some of the major issues that I have on my mind. First, for the reasons I've outlined a few minutes ago, the time is right for a renewed infrastructure program in our province. We will do our part, but it would be good for Alberta to have a cooperative, dependable, long-term partner in Ottawa to help our province tackle this work. Second, the issue of how we will finance universal public health care in Canada lies before us. We will do our part here as well, protecting Alberta's healthcare system and managing so that it is stable, sustainable, and there when Albertans need it. But it would also be good for Alberta to have a cooperative, dependable, long-term partner in Ottawa to help our province sustainably fund the single largest program that we deliver. Third, Canada will stand before the world at the COP21 conference in Paris at the end of the year. Alberta needs to come out of that conference seen by the world as a global leader on climate change. And we must do this for all the reasons I've spoken about today, which are in the best interest of building and diversifying Alberta's energy industry and our markets, specifically in the hope that we can have, as I've said before, a drama-free discussion about pipelines on their own economic and environmental merits. It would be good for Alberta to have a partner in Ottawa who will take all of these issues seriously and who will work with us constructively and in a way that works for our province and our economy. Finally, at every level of government, we must do a much better job than we have done for the past 130 years in finding a respectful relationship with Canada's First Nations. The absence of fairness and justice for Aboriginal peoples in Canada is one of our country's greatest failures and one of the greatest responsibilities facing our country today. So there is a great deal to tackle on the national agenda, and hopefully we'll get to it pretty soon, about 10 days, I think. In the meantime, we will get our work done here in Alberta. We will stabilize our public services and run them well. We will set out a plan to return our budget to balance. And we will work within our means to promote jobs, value-added diversification, value-added production, and prosperity. Prosperity that is, as I said at the outset, widely shared and in balance with our duty to act on climate change. So I'd like to thank you all 1,600 of my new best friends. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out to join me and to listen to my comments today. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you to build this beautiful, smart, entrepreneurial, and always exciting province of Alberta. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier. So I think, is that your microphone? Well, thank you, Premier, for those great remarks. And I know everybody in this room is wanting to participate in helping achieve and build that Alberta.
Does that work?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
Can everybody hear the Premier?
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah. I can hear me echoing.
Thank you for having a little fireside, flowerside chat here. We appreciate a chance to dig deeper on a couple of the points. We've talked to our members, talked to the business community, and want to pose a few questions around a variety of topics. Let's start with maybe something about balance. So you've got the royalty review is happening. We've got a climate policy review. Can you speak to how you'll reconcile those two very important, connected, but in a lot of ways different reviews? And then reflecting on the fact that there have been additional costs to business. We've seen corporate taxes increase, we've seen minimum wage increase, we've seen the carbon levy increase. Can you assure us here, is there someone looking at that big picture? Is there someone saying, this is going to cost this is going to add to this? Viewed in piecemeal, they can probably seem rather innocuous, but when you add them together, there's an impact. So maybe get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Well, you know, as you know, when we had a very robust conversation with Albertans in the spring, we talked about the issues of the royalty review and the need to act on climate change. And Albertans delivered a pretty clear message back to all of the candidates in the election, including ourselves, that this is an issue that they believe we need to move on. We've said all along that it needs to be done within the context of understanding the economic circumstances and the vulnerability that key sectors of our economy face right now. And I think that that's been clearly communicated within the work that those panels are doing. Soon after the election, we did as much as we could to reach out to key business leaders right after the election. And one of the things that I heard back from them was, listen, when you're going forward on this, make sure that they're not isolated and they're not siloed, that the implications of one are considered in the context of the other. And that was very good advice. And that's exactly what we will do. There will not be a decision on one without a clear understanding of the other. And we've certainly asked our panels to keep in touch with each other. And when we come up with an overarching plan, it will absolutely be done within the overall understanding of what is the collective impact of this. At the end of the day, we want to, as I said in my remarks, we want to grow prosperity in Alberta. We want to grow business. We want to support those businesses that are struggling right now with the downturn in the economy. And we want to grow jobs, and we want to protect jobs, because that's what's fundamentally important to the prosperity of the citizens of this province. And so that is exactly the context within which we'll be doing that work. That's security. The other couple points that I would say is, I think in the long term, you know, what we've heard from a lot of folks is, you know, we need certainty and we need stability. And what I've heard from a lot of folks is that failing to move on climate change will actually generate more instability than getting in line with where the rest of the world is going. I've certainly heard that from investors when as you know, I spent some time last week along the eastern seaboard reaching out to investors, and that was certainly a very common message that I heard back, that more and more investors are looking to invest in an industry that has done its work on climate change and is operating within the context of those parameters. And so I think in the long term, what we're going to be able to do is strengthen and provide stability to our growth plans going forward.
I think you get absolute alignment in the room that the climate change and being a stronger environmental steward in Alberta is the right way to go for many, many reasons. And so glad to hear that there is, hopefully there is a strong mechanism within government that will make that reflection on the balance and will also be encompassing of all the different factors from all the panels and all the other changes that have been made. Building on the climate change point, and you alluded to it in your remarks, the notion that if we can be stronger stewards of the environment and the climate, that would begin to smooth the pathway for getting our product to market. We've doubled the carbon levy so far. We have a climate policy review underway. Have you come back with any assurances from some of our other provincial leaders, Quebec, Ontario, even into the States, that the moves we're making are actually going to yield some of the outcomes that we want in terms of different pipeline routes and things like that? Or where do you see that? How far do we need to go to get some of those assurances?
Well, I think, I think it's a process. And so, I mean, I've been in government for just over 4 months. And so it's a process of reframing the conversation and reframing the debate, not only with the particular provincial leaders, but also with the people to whom those provincial leaders listen, whether it be investors, whether it be business leaders, whether it be citizens. And so it's not something that's going to happen overnight. But we've seen the development of the impediments that our industry in this province has faced for many years now in terms of getting access to more diversified markets. That has developed over time. It's developed as a result of many, many years of people questioning the work of this government, the government of Alberta, around ensuring that the product which we're selling meets adequate environmental standards. And so we're not going to fix that overnight. But absolutely, in terms of the conversations that we've had, we've talked about, listen, we need to reframe the debate. We need to talk about what the actual economic and environmental implications are of the pipeline. I mean, both key premiers have said to me, we understand that rail is not the way to go. We understand that the growth in our country is going to be driven in large part by the energy industry in Alberta. And we understand that we have to come to terms with that. Assurances, we're not there yet. I think we have more to do, because thus far we've been talking about it, but we need to be able to deliver something. We have to walk, we have to walk the talk. And so I'm looking forward to seeing a changed discussion. And I feel that we've already made progress. And certainly in terms of key investors, that's what I've been hearing back.
Has anyone given you an order of magnitude of the target that we're trying to achieve in Alberta so that we can get some of that support across the country or internationally?
No, we have not started doing, target-by-target negotiations or anything like that. It's really a question of, but what I've heard back, though, is they see that, for instance, the climate change panel that's in place, they see that it's meaningful, that there are, very, very respectable, credible, balanced people that are involved with the panel, and that everyone's coming to the table with very good intentions to do better. The level of debate and discussion that I'm hearing back about from panel members, the engagement by industry and the energy industry in it is remarkably encouraging. And I think that the quality of the conversation that we're having right now has
improved exponentially simply in the last 4 months. And what I can say is that people or leaders from other provinces know that that is what's happening. So that's where we're at this point.
Great. You've alluded to, and I think we all recognize, we're in some challenging times in Alberta. Recently, after the Alberta Chamber of Commerce event that you spoke at, talking about the potential adjustment to a timeline of achieving balanced budget in Alberta, and said that we have to look at all of our promises in the platform, what's the appropriate timing for things. And I wonder if, is there a similar argument that could be made for some of the other changes that are either have been, well, some of them have been made, it's too late, but ones that are on the book. So for example, we've moved forward with corporate tax increases, moved forward on the beginning of movements on minimum wage. Businesses feeling the same difficulty that the province of Alberta is facing. Is there a chance to reflect on the fact that timing may not be optimal to move all of those things ahead of the original schedule?
Well, I think that in many, as I've said before, I mean, we want to work with business, we want to work with the job creators. I think there's already some indication that we're conscious of those issues in that, for instance, with the royalty review, we had advocates come to us, industry people as well as, civil society spokespeople come to us and say, listen, can you give us a guarantee of the earliest when this would be implemented? And so we responded to that, and we said January 1st, 2017. So we've made that adjustment. We have, from when we identified our platform to now, we're aware that the job creation piece is got to play a much larger role. And so we very quickly started looking at the role capital investment can play in terms of giving more support to business and job creators, and to create more jobs in the province. Where I can't get into the details, and I do before the budget, of certain components of our economic stimulus strategy, but you'll see those pieces will remain in place and will be very focused, and there may even be some new ones which weren't in our platform but that had been floated to us by advocates within the business community, and so those are happening, and so we're going to look at that, and then we're going to look at the whole issue of balance, and we're going to look at the timing of that, and then there will be some of the funding announcements, the program-based announcements that may be deferred a little bit because of what you say. We need to balance. We need to have a reasonable plan to balance. And we have to balance between not spending too much and not cutting and stimulating economic growth. So I feel quite strongly that when you see our budget, you'll see that we have actually tweaked some things in a way to put greater emphasis on the need to work with our partners in business to build, to enhance job creation opportunities and to enhance diversification and business development opportunities.
Wonderful. I look forward to the budget.
Okay.
Diversification, and I don't know if there's parts embedded in the budget that you can't allude to quite yet, but with the low energy prices, obviously renewed calls for Alberta to be a more diversified economy. You alluded to the great universities and research institutions, our capital, our people in Alberta. Could you lay out your thoughts as to what does a diversified economy in Alberta look like, and what are some of those opportunities that you and your government see? For example, particularly in the agriculture sector, something that has been a foundation of Alberta, but has not, second largest contributor to our economic activity, but really doesn't get the profile and the recognition that it deserves. So maybe if you could speak to the diversification.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, of course, as you're quite right, the agriculture industry is something that is sometimes overlooked, and yet it contributes significantly to the strength of our economy. And so there's a number of things that we can do, like with oil and gas. We need to work hard to diversify our markets and expand the markets that are available for our agricultural products, because we really do have some first-rate agricultural products to deliver to the rest of the world. Beef is one example, but it's certainly not the only one. And one of the things that we need to do to strengthen that industry overall is to increase the number of products, and to provide support for more products from outside the agriculture industry. So whether, we had a plant open in, where was it now? It wasn't Lethbridge. Anyway, I can't remember now. There was
Southern Alberta.
No, it wasn't Southern Alberta.
No?
I think it wasn't Red Deer. Anyway, sorry. There was it's a canola processing plant that was opened just a couple months ago, and creating a new product through that. So a good beginning. Some work done in Lethbridge with respect to egg production, and creating a whole new product with eggshells above and beyond the actual eggs. So. There's interesting ideas for how we can expand the products within the agricultural industry. But really what we need to do, and one of the things you'll see a focus on in our budget, is we need to support the agricultural industry's access to greater markets. And then we'll also be globally looking at ways in which we can incent more diversification within that industry, as well as, there are others too. We've got forestry, we've got, I think there's tremendous opportunities in terms of the quality of our post-secondary institutions and the expertise that we already have to diversify within energy and become an expert in not only of just a raw product, but of other energy technology. And what can we do there? So a lot of ideas that are on the table, and so it's up to us as government to try and coordinate that and harness that and map out a plan, and that's what I hope you'll see reflected in the budget.
Great, because I know so many opportunities in this province. As you say, we are blessed with so many resources, human, natural. We need the right environment, and we need to be able to make sure that we can develop some of those research ideas or areas, because that diversification will be critical going forward. Final question, touching on small business. 90% of businesses in Alberta are small. Same with Calgary. It's a general demographic. The heart and soul of our communities. Many heartened to hear your support of small business, but I think when we look at how we define small business, that many, from a taxation perspective, it's anything under $500,000 of income. So that's a very small bandwidth of companies, and so many have said that they feel that it's become a more challenging environment for them. Downturn in the economy, but now facing higher minimum wage, facing a raise in corporate income taxes because they are above that threshold. What is your small business strategy to support the health, the vitality of small businesses in Alberta?
Well, good points, and as you know, with respect to the actual small business tax, it remains one of the lowest in the country, and so it remains very competitive. And as you know as well, with us continuing to be a province that does not have a sales tax, which of course is something that I've committed, no one needs to worry about that suddenly sneaking its way in anywhere over the course of my term as Premier. Right there, competitively, relative to other jurisdictions, we remain very well placed, particularly for small business. As you know, it's a blended tax rate above the 500, and so the impact of the corporate tax becomes greater the larger the business, and so I realize that that's a little bit of a challenge, but at the same time, we've asked all Albertans to chip in and contribute to the fact that we were running into some difficult challenges fiscally in the province. We're a province, unlike any other province in the country, that has grown used to funding about 20% of its budget by selling off an acre of land every year, essentially, through the royalties. And so we had a very robust conversation in the spring about how do we balance this? How do we deal with this fiscal challenge? And Albertans weighed in on a number of different options. And so the corporate tax was one of the things that they weighed in on. And so we went forward on it, as we committed to in our platform, in a predictable way. But after that, we absolutely do understand that, as I say, small businesses are job creators. So what we've talked about some of the things that we are thinking about and that we talked about in our platform, which we're deliberating on as we start think about where the budget will go, are the issues around the job creation incentives, around STEP program, around access to capital, around supporting more innovative and smaller businesses that struggle to get capital in certain circumstances, certain sizes, certain types of expansion. We know that there's a bit of a problem right now in terms of getting access to that capital. So we're looking at some of those things. And so I think and I hope that small businesses will find that our government is giving them some opportunities after the budget.
Great. Thank you, Premier. Appreciate you being a good sport and having a flower side chat here. And so thank you.
I can't believe how quiet everyone is. Like, how many of you guys go to a fireside chat and sit and listen for an hour? 1,600 people. No one else is jumping in.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Premier. Really appreciate you being here today.
Thank
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so very much. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you.